The morning I found zeros in my bank account, I did not cry. I did not scream. I laughed. 32 years as a fire chief in Denver, and I had taught every rookie the same lesson. Where there is smoke, there is fire. My daughter thought she had gotten away clean, but I had spent my whole career finding the source of the blaze. And this time, the trail led straight to her wedding altar. Hello, friends. Thanks for joining me. Please like, subscribe, and comment where you are watching from. Quick note, this is a fictional story with dramatized elements for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to real events is coincidental, but the lesson within is something we can all learn from. It was 7:30 on a Sunday morning in late October. The kind of morning that should have been peaceful. I sat at my kitchen table in Lakewood, Colorado, laptop open, coffee growing cold beside me. Through the window, the first light was catching the peaks of the Rocky Mountains, painting them in shades of gold and amber. The aspens on the foothills had already turned, their leaves trembling like small golden coins in the breeze. Beautiful morning, terrible morning. I had opened my bank account the way I always did. Routine. The same way I used to check equipment before a shift. Checking account, $1,847.22. Previous balance, $7,200. Savings account, $0. Previous balance, $260,000. I blinked. I closed the laptop. I opened it again. Still zero. $260,000 does not just vanish. It does not evaporate like water on hot asphalt. Somebody moves that kind of money. Somebody with access, with intent, with a plan. I clicked on the transaction history. My hands were steady. 32 years of walking into burning buildings teaches you how to stay calm when the floor is collapsing beneath you. 4 transactions. 3 days. Everything I had saved over 3 decades. Gone. October 22nd, 2024. 9:14 in the morning. $95,000 transferred to Haley Brennan. Account ending in 4719. October 22nd, 2024. 2:41 in the afternoon. $85,000 transferred to MW Tech Ventures, LLC. October 23rd, 2024. 10:17 in the morning. $62,000 wire transfer to Rocky Mountain Luxury Events. October 24th, 2024. 3:55 in the afternoon. $18,000 wire transfer to an account in Salt Lake City. Name redacted. Haley Brennan. My daughter. 30 years old. The girl who used to ride on my shoulders through Wash Park on Sunday mornings. The girl who once told me I was braver than every superhero combined because I ran into fire while everyone else ran out. She had just cleaned me out. And that last transaction, $18,000 to Salt Lake City. I did not recognize the account. I did not understand it. But I filed it away. The way I filed away strange smoke patterns at a scene. It did not fit, and things that do not fit are usually the things that matter most. That is when I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because what else do you do when you have spent your entire career protecting people from exactly this, and then you wake up one morning to discover you are the victim? You laugh. Or you shatter. I chose laughter because shattering was not going to get my money back. The phone rang. I looked at the screen. Haley Brennan. My daughter's name, glowing on the glass, like a lit fuse. I thought about letting it ring. I thought about pretending I had not seen the statements yet, that I was still the tired old fireman she clearly thought I was. Confused. Harmless. Easy to fool, but I am not confused. I am not harmless, and I have never been easy to fool. I picked up, Dad. Her voice was bright, almost giddy, like a child who had gotten away with stealing cookies and could not contain the thrill. I have the most amazing news. Brandon and I are getting married this Saturday. Can you believe it? And Dad, we bought a house. My grip tightened on the phone. A house. Yes, it is perfect. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, big backyard. You are going to love it. It is in Aurora. My chest went cold. What is the address? 1547 Peoria Street. It is close to everything. We got an incredible deal. 1547 Peoria Street. My rental property. The house I had purchased in 2016 for $340,000. The house that was now worth $540,000. The house that brought in $2,800 a month from the Petersons. The best tenants I had ever had. The house that was supposed to fund the rest of my life. Haley, I said slowly, that is my house. A pause, then a laugh, light, unbothered. Like I had just told a mildly amusing joke. I know, Dad. That is the best part. I used the power of attorney you signed. Remember when you were in the hospital last month? You said I could handle things if you were ever unable to manage, so I sold the house to us. It stays in the family. Is that not great? Power of attorney. I did not remember signing a power of attorney. I would remember that. I had spent 32 years signing incident reports, equipment requisitions, liability waivers. I knew what my signature meant. I knew what authorization looked like. And I would never, in any state of mind, hand my daughter unrestricted access to my finances. Then it hit me. October. The hospital. UC Health. University of Colorado Hospital. I had fallen down the stairs at 2 a.m, half asleep, and cracked 2 ribs. 3 days in the same hospital where Laura had worked for 19 years. The same hallways she had walked in her blue scrubs. The same fluorescent lights that had buzzed above her station in the ICU. And Haley had come to visit on the 3rd day. Carrying a folder, smiling, saying the words every scam artist in history has used to steal from someone they claim to love. Just routine paperwork, Dad. Insurance forms. Sign here, 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 and here. I had signed 4 times. In the building where my wife took her last breath, my daughter had handed me the documents that would rob me of everything. Haley, I said quietly, where did my $260,000 go? I already told you, Dad. The house. The wedding. We are building a life. Are you feeling okay? You sound confused. Confused. That word again. She wanted me confused. She needed me confused. Because confused old men do not fight back. They sit in their kitchens and accept what is done to them. I am fine, I said. I will call you later. Wait, Dad. I hung up. The kitchen was silent. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a neighbor's sprinkler. I sat there staring at the laptop screen. 0. I looked up at the mantel. Laura's photograph in its silver frame. Our 20th anniversary, taken at the top of Trail Ridge Road in Rocky Mountain National Park. Wind in her hair, that fearless smile, the whole world spread out behind her. She lit the match in the same hospital where you took your last breath. I whispered. Our daughter set this fire in your house, Laura. In the place where you saved lives for 19 years. The photograph did not answer. It never did. I closed my eyes and sat there for a long time. Then I opened them, pulled the laptop toward me, and typed into the search bar. Elder Financial Abuse Attorney, Denver, Colorado. The first result was Victoria Chen and Associates. 5 stars. Specializes in elder financial abuse, fraud, estate disputes. I stared at the phone number. This was the line. On one side was the father who loved his daughter. On the other side was the fire chief, who knew exactly what to do when a building was burning. I had spent 32 years choosing the fire. I was not about to stop now. I stared at Victoria Chen's phone number on the screen. But I did not call. Not yet. Because before I could fight this fire, I needed to understand how it started. And that meant understanding how a man who had spent 3 decades reading smoke had missed every sign that his own house was burning. I pushed back from the table and looked around the kitchen. This house. 4821 West Maple Drive. Lakewood, Colorado. Laura and I had bought it in 1993, a year after we got married. A single-story ranch with a wide front porch and a backyard that faced the foothills. Laura had fallen in love with the view. "You can see the mountains from the kitchen, Mike. Every morning we will have coffee with the Rockies." And we did. For 28 years, we drank our coffee at this table and watched the seasons change on those peaks. Snow in winter, wildflowers in spring, golden aspens in fall. Laura said, "The mountains were God's way of reminding us that some things do not move, no matter what storms come through." Now I drank my coffee alone. And the mountains looked the same, but nothing else did. I stood and walked through the house slowly, seeing it the way I had not allowed myself to see it in years. The living room, where Haley had taken her first steps toward Laura's outstretched arms. The hallway, where a faded line of pencil marks on the doorframe tracked Haley's height from age 3 to 17. The garage. I stopped at the garage door and opened it. The overhead light buzzed on, flickering twice before catching. My old life hung on the walls like a museum exhibit. My dress uniform, navy blue with brass buttons, sealed in a dry cleaning bag. My helmet, scratched and smoke-stained, sitting on a shelf next to a plaque that read Chief Michael Brennan, Denver Fire Department. Station 3, 32 years of dedicated service. And pinned to the corkboard above my workbench, a drawing, faded crayon on yellow construction paper. A red fire truck with a stick figure standing on top, arms raised. A big letter M on his chest. Beneath it, in the careful block letters of a 6-year-old girl, the words, "My dad saves people." Haley had drawn it in the summer of 2000. She was 6. I had just come home from a structure fire in 5 Points, still smelling like smoke, my turnout gear dripping on the kitchen floor. Haley had run to me, thrown her arms around my legs, and said, "Daddy, I made you a picture. You are a superhero. You save people from fire." I had knelt beside her, still in my boots, and looked at that drawing like it was the most important document I had ever received. Because it was. "Can I keep it?" I asked. She nodded, serious as a judge. "You have to, because you protect people. That is your job." I pinned it to my locker at Station 3 that afternoon. It stayed there for 22 years. Every shift, I looked at it. Colleagues asked about it over the years, and I always said the same thing. "That is my daughter. She thinks I am a hero." When I retired in 2022, I brought it home and pinned it here in the garage. The crayon had faded, the paper had yellowed, but the words were still legible. "My dad saves people." I stared at it now and felt something twist deep in my chest. The girl who drew that picture had just stolen $260,000 from me and sold my house. The girl who believed I was a superhero had forged my signature while I lay broken in a hospital bed. I turned away. The rental property, 1547 Peoria Street, Aurora. I had bought it in 2016 for $340,000, right before the Denver metro market exploded. By 2024, it was worth $540,000. Easy. David and Karen Peterson had been renting it since 2020. Good people, paid $2,800 a month on the first, never a day late. Kept the yard clean, fixed small things themselves, never complained. That rental income covered property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and still left me with a cushion that made retirement possible. Between the rental and my savings, I was set. Not wealthy, comfortable. The kind of comfortable that a man earns after 32 years of 14-hour shifts and holidays spent at the station instead of at home. Gone. All of it. Because my daughter walked into a hospital room with a folder and a smile and said, "Just sign here, Dad." I walked back to the kitchen and sat down. Opened the laptop one more time. Pulled up the transaction list again. Not because I needed to see it, but because I needed to make sure I had not missed anything. My eyes stopped on the fourth line. October 24th. $18,000. Wire transfer to Salt Lake City. Account holder name redacted. That transaction did not belong. The others made a sick kind of sense. Haley's account, the wedding company, the fake tech venture. But Salt Lake City. I did not know anyone in Salt Lake City. Neither did Haley, as far as I knew. $18,000 sent to a stranger in another state on the same day my daughter was draining my life savings. In 32 years of fire investigation, I had learned one rule that never failed. When something does not fit the pattern, it is either the key to the whole case or the thing that burns you if you ignore it. I was not going to ignore it. I closed the laptop and stood. Walked to the bedroom. My navy suit hung in the closet. The same suit I had worn to Laura's funeral. The same suit I wore when the department gave me that plaque and shook my hand and told me to enjoy retirement. I pulled it out and laid it on the bed. Then I turned toward Laura's side of the room. Her closet door was closed. It had been closed for 3 years. Her clothes were still inside. Her shoes, her scarves, and somewhere in there, a small box I had never opened. The hospice nurse had mentioned it after Laura passed. "She left something for you and your daughter," the nurse had said, "in a box on the top shelf. She asked me to make sure you found it." I had found it. I had held it. And I had put it back on the shelf because I was not ready. 3 years later, I still was not ready. I placed my hand flat against the closet door. The wood was cool under my palm. I could almost smell her. Jasmine and clean cotton. The scent of every good thing I had ever known. "Not today," I whispered. But soon, I pulled my hand away, picked up the navy suit, and headed for the shower. I had an appointment to make. Not with the past, but with the woman who was going to help me fight for my future. Victoria Chen's office was on Colfax Avenue. I would be there by 2. And by the time I walked out, the fire my daughter had started would have a response team, because that is what fire chiefs do. We do not stand in the yard and watch the building burn. We gear up, we go in, and we do not come out until the fire is dead. I drove south on Wadsworth toward Colfax, the Rockies filling my rearview mirror. At the intersection of 6th Avenue and Sheridan, I passed Denver Fire Station 3. I had not meant to look. But you do not drive past the place where you spent 32 years of your life and not turn your head. The bay doors were open. Engine 3 sat gleaming in the afternoon light. Red and chrome. Exactly the way I remembered. A young firefighter was coiling a hose near the apron, moving with the easy confidence of someone who still believed the job made you invincible. I had believed that once. Station 3 was where I met Laura. October 1991. I was 26 years old. 3 years into the department. Still a lieutenant running calls. And thinking I knew everything. Laura was 24, a newly certified ICU nurse at University of Colorado Hospital. And she had come to the station to teach a CPR refresher course. She walked into the training room carrying a duffel bag full of resuscitation dummies and a clipboard, and she looked at 12 firefighters like we were first graders who had not done our homework. "All right, gentlemen," she said, setting down the bag. "I know you think you know CPR. But based on the survival rates coming out of this district, I would say we have room for improvement." Frank Rossi, who was sitting next to me, leaned over and whispered, "I think I am in love." I did not say anything. But I was thinking the same thing. She was 5'6", with auburn hair pulled back in a braid and green eyes that could pin you to the wall when she was serious, which was most of the time. She had a dry sense of humor that snuck up on you, and a laugh that made you want to say something funny just to hear it again. She corrected my hand placement on the dummy 3 times. The 3rd time she said, "Chief, if this were a real patient, you would have just broken 3 ribs." I was not a chief yet. I was a lieutenant, and I was already planning how to ask her to dinner. Our first date was 2 weeks later. A Mexican restaurant on South Broadway, called La Loma. She ordered enchiladas and a Dos Equis, and told me about the night shift in the ICU like it was the most important work in the world. Because to her, it was. She had grown up in Fort Collins. Her father was a teacher. Her mother was a librarian. She had wanted to be a nurse since she was 9 years old, when her grandmother had a stroke and the nurses at Poudre Valley Hospital had been the ones who held the family together. "I am not saving the world," she told me that night, tearing a tortilla in half. "I am saving one person at a time, and hoping it adds up." We were married on June 14th, 1992. A small ceremony at a chapel in Littleton, surrounded by pine trees with the mountains behind us. Laura wore her mother's dress. I wore a suit I had borrowed from my father because mine did not fit right. Frank Rossi was my best man. He cried harder than anyone. We moved into the Lakewood house that same summer. Laura planted a garden in the backyard, lavender and columbines, because she said Colorado wildflowers do not need permission to grow. They just need space. Haley arrived on March 15th, 1994. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Laura had complications during the delivery. The doctors told us there would not be any more children. We did not care. Haley was enough. She was more than enough. She was a serious baby. Always watching. Always studying. Laura used to say she had my stubbornness and her curiosity, which meant she would either save the world or burn it down. I think about that now and wonder if Laura saw something I did not. Those early years were the fullest of my life. I worked 24-hour shifts at Station 3, then came home to a house that smelled like lavender and whatever Laura was baking. She worked nights at UC Health, 3 12-hour shifts a week, so we traded off. When I was at the station, she was with Haley. When she was at the hospital, I was with Haley. We were a relay team passing a baton back and forth across the days, tired but running. Saturdays were ours. All 3 of us. We hiked every trail within an hour of Denver. Bear Creek, Mount Falcon, Staunton State Park. Laura carried Haley in a backpack carrier until Haley was old enough to walk, and then Haley outpaced both of us. She would run ahead on the trail, her ponytail bouncing, and yell back, "Come on! You guys are so slow." In the fall, we drove up to Kenosha Pass to watch the aspens turn. Laura would stand in the middle of all that gold, arms spread wide, head tilted back, and close her eyes. Every year, she said the same thing. "This is my church, Mike. This right here." I would watch her standing there with the wind in her hair and the gold light all around her and think, I would walk into any fire for this woman. Any fire. Any time. And I did. For 28 years. Laura worked the ICU at UCL like it was a calling, because it was. She held the hands of dying patients when their families could not be there. She talked to unconscious people because she believed they could hear her. She came home some mornings with red eyes and a quiet voice and sat at the kitchen table drinking tea, saying nothing, and I learned not to ask. She would tell me when she was ready. Sometimes she did. Sometimes she just reached across the table and held my hand, and that was enough. We were a team. I put out fires. She healed what fire left behind. Between us, we covered the whole spectrum of human crisis, and somehow we still managed to sit on the back porch on summer evenings, watch the sun set behind the Rockies, and feel like the luckiest people alive. I did not know it then. But we were. We were the luckiest people alive. And the thing about luck is you never recognize it until it is gone. I pulled into a parking lot on Colfax and turned off the engine. Victoria Chen's office was in the building across the street. 3rd floor. I could see the sign from the car, but I did not get out. Not yet. Because I was thinking about the last time I had seen Laura alive. Not in a photograph. Not in a memory of golden aspens. The last time. March 7th, 2021. A Sunday morning. She was heading to UC Health for a double shift. COVID was surging again. The ICU was overflowing. They needed every nurse they could get, and Laura had never once said no when the hospital called. She stood in the doorway of our bedroom, her hair in a braid, her blue scrubs crisp, her badge clipped to her chest, the same way she had looked 1,000 times before. "I will be home by Tuesday," she said. "Be careful," I told her. She smiled. "I am always careful, Mike. You are the one who runs into fire." She kissed me. Walked down the hallway. I heard the front door close. I heard her car start. I heard her pull out of the driveway. And that was the last time. I sat in the car on Colfax Avenue, 37 months later, and I could still hear that front door closing. The softest sound. The loudest sound. I took a breath. Then I opened the car door and stepped out into the October afternoon. Victoria Chen was waiting. The fire was burning. And I could not save Laura, but I could still save myself. And maybe, if I was not too late, I could still save Haley. Victoria Chen's office was on the 3rd floor. Clean lines, warm lighting, a wall of diplomas, and a window overlooking Colfax traffic. She was younger than I expected. Mid-40s, sharp eyes behind dark-framed glasses, a handshake that meant business. She asked me to start at the beginning, so I did. Not with the bank account, not with the zeros. I started with the fire I could not put out. March 9th, 2021. I was at Commerce City, a warehouse fire on East 64th Avenue. 3-alarm, heavy smoke, compromised roof. I was running incident command from the street, coordinating crews, managing the clock the way I had done 1,000 times before. At 8:47 in the evening, my phone vibrated. I ignored it. You do not answer personal calls during an active incident. It vibrated again at 8:51, and again at 8:53. 3 missed calls from UC Health. 1 voicemail. I knew before I listened. The same way you know when a building is about to collapse. There is a deep groan in the structure, and every firefighter who has heard it knows what comes next. "Mr. Brennan, this is Dr. Sarah Langford at UC Health. I am calling about your wife. Please call us back as soon as possible. Please call us back. Not she is stable. Not she is resting. Please call us back." I handed command to my deputy, got in my truck, and drove 16 miles to the hospital in 11 minutes. Laura had contracted COVID from a patient in the ICU 9 days earlier. She had not told me she was symptomatic. She kept working because the unit was short-staffed, and Laura never left when people needed her. By the time her oxygen dropped enough for a ventilator, the damage was irreversible. She passed at 7:22 in the evening. While I was standing on a street in Commerce City counting heads and coordinating water pressure, my wife was dying 1 floor above the ICU, where she had spent 19 years saving other people's lives. I was not there. The nurse led me to her room. Laura was on the bed, eyes closed, peaceful. The machines were still running, but she was gone. I could tell because the room felt emptier. Like the air itself had lost something it could not get back. Haley arrived 20 minutes later. She stopped in the doorway, looked at Laura, looked at me, and the first thing she said was not "I am sorry" or "I love you." "Where were you?" "I was at a fire." She stared at me, eyes red, but dry. "Mom was dying and you were at a fire." I did not answer because she was right. I was always at a fire. For 32 years, the department came first. Laura understood that. She had married a firefighter knowing what it meant. But Haley was not Laura. Haley could not forgive it. The funeral was on a Saturday. Snow falling. Light and steady. The kind that makes the world go quiet. The department sent an honor guard. They draped a flag over Laura's casket. The bagpiper played Amazing Grace, and I stood in my navy suit with my daughter beside me and felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Haley held my hand. Tight. Almost too tight. And when it was over, she whispered, "I will take care of you, Dad. I promise." I held her tighter because I needed to believe her. I paused in Victoria's office. She was writing on her legal pad. She had not interrupted once. What happened after the funeral? She asked. I fell apart, I said. Quietly and completely. I retired in 2022. The department gave me a plaque and a gold watch. I put both in a drawer. Retirement was supposed to help. Instead, the house just got quieter. Haley called it first. Once a week, sometimes twice. She was working as a sales rep at a car dealership in Colorado Springs. $58,000 a year. $58,000 a year. What I did not know was that she was $40,000 in debt, credit cards, an auto loan she could not afford. She never said a word. By 2023, the calls dropped to twice a month. Then once. Then almost never. Cannot talk, Dad. Work is crazy. I will call you back. She never did. Frank Rossi came by one summer evening. We sat on the back porch with beers, watching the sun drop behind the Rockies. Call her, Mike. I do call. She does not answer. Then drive down to the Springs. Show up. I am not going to chase my own daughter, Frank. He took a long drink. Sitting here alone is not working either, brother. He was right. But I did not listen. Because I was afraid that if I showed up and she turned me away, I would have nothing left. At least with silence. There was still the possibility that tomorrow she might call. Tomorrow never came. I started volunteering at the Denver Public Library in early 2024. Financial literacy workshops for seniors. Twice a month. A retired fire chief teaching old people how to protect their money from fraud. I knew the patterns. I knew the language. I knew how a voice changes when someone is lying. The week before I found the zeros, my workshop topic was recognizing financial exploitation by family members. I had stood in front of 15 seniors and said, the hardest fraud to spot is the one committed by someone you love, because you do not want to see it. Your brain rewrites the evidence. It makes excuses. It tells you the person standing in front of you could not possibly be the one holding the match. 15 people took notes. I had no idea I was describing my own life. Victoria set her pen down. When did your daughter first ask about the property? May 2024, I said. She called out of nowhere. First time in weeks. Hey Dad, quick question. How much is the Aurora house worth? I was so happy to hear from her that I answered without thinking. About $540,000. Why? Oh, just curious. Marcus and I were talking about real estate. I will tell you about him later. Love you, Dad. She hung up. And I sat there smiling because my daughter had called and I did not care why. I just cared that she did. Victoria looked at me. When did you meet Marcus? June. I said. And that is when the smoke got thicker. June 2024, I told Victoria. Haley called on a Saturday morning and asked if she could bring someone to dinner. I want you to meet Marcus, Dad. I think you are really going to like him. I said yes before she finished the sentence. My daughter wanted to come to my house. She wanted me to meet someone important to her. After 3 years of silence and missed calls and empty chairs at my kitchen table, she was coming home. I would have said yes to anything. They arrived at 6. Haley looked different. Lighter. She was smiling the way she used to smile before Laura passed, before the grief and the distance and the quiet blame had hollowed her out. And the man beside her looked like he had been assembled from a catalog. Marcus Webb, 35 years old, 6'1", dark hair, clean jawline, charcoal suit that fit like it had been tailored yesterday. He shook my hand in the doorway with a grip that was firm and practiced. Mr. Brennan, it is an honor. Haley has told me so much about you. A real-life hero. I have enormous respect for first responders. Call me Mike, I said. Come on in. We sat in the living room. Haley brought out drinks. Marcus leaned back on the couch, completely at ease, and started talking about his work. Health technology, an app for patients with chronic conditions, remote monitoring, personalized care plans, AI-driven diagnostics. He used the words with the fluency of someone who had rehearsed them in front of a mirror. "My family has been in healthcare for years," he said. "My mother was a nurse for 2 decades. My father ran a medical supply company. I grew up around hospitals. It is in my blood." I nodded and listened. And while I listened, I watched. 32 years of fire investigation teaches you to observe what people do not want you to see. Their hands, their eyes, the micro-expressions that flash across their face when they think you are not paying attention. Marcus had soft hands. No calluses. No scars. No dry skin from manual work. The hands of a man who had never built anything with them. I had shaken hands with hundreds of business owners over the years. Contractors, developers, entrepreneurs. Their hands told stories. Marcus's hands were blank pages, and his watch. He wore it casually, letting it catch the light when he gestured, the way a man does when he wants you to notice it. Omega Seamaster. Brushed, steel, blue dial. Except the weight was wrong. I had pulled enough jewelry out of fire debris to know the difference between real metal and plated alloy. That watch was a $200 replica on a wrist, pretending to be worth $8,000. But Haley was glowing. She sat beside him with her hand on his knee, looking at him the way Laura used to look at me. And I thought, maybe I am wrong. Maybe the watch is a gift. Maybe his hands are soft because he works in tech. Maybe I am just a paranoid old man who sees fire everywhere because that is all I have ever known. So I said nothing. July. Haley called again. She wanted me to meet Marcus's parents. Dinner at Garden Grace. Downtown Denver, Friday night. They were already seated when I arrived. "Linda and Richard," Marcus said, gesturing to the couple across the table. Linda was mid-50s. Warm smile, elegant, silver earrings. She stood and took both my hands. "Mike, it is so wonderful to finally meet you. Haley is such a treasure. You must be so proud." Richard was early 60s. Graying hair, quiet, firm handshake. He said something about the weather and sat back down. Over dinner, Linda carried the conversation. She talked about the family business, medical supply distribution, 20 years of growth. She talked about Marcus, how proud they were, how hard he had worked. And then she said something that stopped me cold. "I was a nurse for 20 years before I joined Richard in the business. Started in the ER. Worked my way to surgical. Those years shaped everything I am. A nurse. For 20 years. The same career Laura had given her life to." I looked at this woman across the table and I saw Laura, not physically, but in the way she carried herself. The steady gaze. The warm directness. The way she talked about nursing like it was not a job but an identity. Something deep inside me that had been locked tight for 3 years cracked open just a fraction. Linda smiled at me. "Family takes care of family, Mike. We are planning to give Marcus and Haley $200,000 as a wedding gift. We want them to have a real start." I nearly choked. "That is very generous." "They are worth it," she said. I left that dinner believing Marcus came from good people. I left believing Laura would have approved. I was wrong on both counts. 2 weeks later, Haley called again. "Dad, Marcus and I have an incredible opportunity. A health tech app. We have investors lined up, but we need seed capital. I sent you the business plan." "How much?" $65,000. The business plan arrived by email that afternoon. 18 pages. Professional layout. Market analysis. Revenue projections. Competitive landscape. It looked legitimate, but I had seen enough fraudulent insurance claims in my career to know that anyone with a laptop and a template can make something look real. I should have had a lawyer review it. I should have checked the company registration. But Haley said the words that cut through every defense I had left. "Mom would have believed in me, Dad." "Do you?" I signed. I wired $65,000 to an account listed under MW Tech Ventures LLC. August. Marcus proposed. 4 months of dating. I thought it was fast. I told Haley I was happy for her. I did not tell her I was worried, because I could not afford to lose her again. September. A Sunday evening. Haley invited me to dinner with Marcus at a restaurant in Highlands Ranch. Small talk. Wedding plans. Then Marcus leaned back, casual, like it was nothing. Haley mentioned you have a rental property in Aurora. What is it worth? About $540,000, I said. He nodded slowly. Good investment. I did not think anything of it. I should have. 2 weeks later, I found myself awake at midnight, unable to sleep. I opened my laptop and searched for the app Marcus had described. I checked every platform. Apple, Google, nothing. Then I searched MW Tech Ventures LLC on the Colorado Secretary of State website. No registration, no filing, no record that the company had ever existed. I sat in the dark. The laptop screen, the only light in the room, and I felt it. That low hum in my chest. The instinct that had kept me alive in 1,000 burning buildings. Where there is smoke, there is fire. But the next morning, Haley called, laughing, excited, telling me about flower arrangements and seating charts. And I closed the laptop, because the building that was burning had my daughter inside it, and I was not ready to believe the fire was real. Victoria had stopped writing. She was looking at me with an expression I could not quite read. Sympathy, maybe, or recognition. You knew, she said quietly. Before the hospital, before the power of attorney, you already knew something was wrong. I looked at her. Yes, I knew. But I loved my daughter more than I trusted my instincts. And that is exactly what they were counting on. Victoria leaned forward. Tell me about the power of attorney, she said. When did that happen? October, I said. I got hurt. October 1st, 2024. A Tuesday. 2 in the morning. I woke up to use the bathroom and missed the top step. My left foot caught the edge of the carpet, and I went down the full staircase. 14 steps. I hit the landing with my left side and heard 2 distinct cracks. Ribs. I knew the sound because I had heard it in other people 100 times. I lay on the floor for 10 minutes, breathing shallow, trying to decide whether this was a call the ambulance situation or a tough it out situation. I called the ambulance. When you are 60 years old and alone and you hear your own bones break in a dark hallway at 2 in the morning, pride does not mean much anymore. They took me to UC Health University of Colorado Hospital. I paused. Victoria was watching me carefully. That is where Laura worked, I said. 19 years in the ICU. That is where she died. Victoria nodded slowly. She did not say she was sorry. She did not offer sympathy. She just waited. And I appreciated that more than she knew. The paramedics wheeled me through the emergency entrance and down a corridor I could have navigated with my eyes closed. I had walked those hallways 1,000 times, picking Laura up after a late shift, bringing her coffee on her breaks, sitting in the waiting room during Haley's birth, standing outside the ICU on the worst night of my life. Now I was the patient. Gown, wristband, IV drip, 2 fractured ribs, and a bruised shoulder. They gave me painkillers and told me I would be there for at least 3 days. Observation. Possible complications at my age. Haley did not come the first day. She did not call. She arrived on October 3rd. A Thursday afternoon. I was half asleep, the painkillers making everything soft and blurred. I heard the door open, and her voice, bright and warm. Hi, Dad. How are you feeling? I opened my eyes. She was standing beside the bed, holding a leather folder. She looked put together. Hair done, light makeup, a smile that seemed genuine. For a moment, I forgot about the app that did not exist and the company that was never registered. My daughter was here, in Laura's hospital, visiting me. I am all right, I mumbled. Just sore. You came. Of course I came. She sat down in the chair beside the bed and opened the folder. Dad. I brought some paperwork. Just routine stuff. Insurance forms, medical consent, authorization in case you need surgery or anything unexpected. She pulled out a pen and a stack of documents. 4 pages. She had already flagged the signature lines with little yellow tabs. I squinted at the pages. The words were swimming. The painkillers had turned the text into a gray river of letters that refused to hold still. "What is this?" I asked. "Hospital paperwork," she said. "You know how they are. They need signatures for everything. I already read through it all. It is just standard consent forms. Nothing important." She placed the pen in my hand and pointed to the first yellow tab. "Here, and here, and here, and here. 4 signatures. 4 pages." I could not focus long enough to read a single line. "Haley." I can barely see straight. Her voice shifted. Softer. The voice she used when she wanted something. "It is okay, Dad. I took care of it. I read everything. Just consent forms. Trust me. Trust me." I signed 4 times. My hand was shaking from the painkillers, and my signature looked like it belonged to a man 30 years older. But I signed because my daughter asked me to, because she was sitting in a chair in the hospital where her mother had died, and she was smiling at me, and I wanted to believe that meant something, that she was here because she cared, not because she needed something from me. She tucked the papers back into the folder, kissed my forehead, and said, "I will handle everything, Dad. Do not worry about a thing. Just rest." Then she left. I fell asleep. When I woke up, the room was dim. Machines beeping. That familiar hospital hum. And somewhere down the hall, a nurse walked past my door in blue scrubs. And for one half-conscious second, I thought it was Laura. It was not. It was never going to be Laura again. I told Victoria all of this, and then I told her what I had realized 3 weeks later when I sat at my kitchen table staring at zeros on a screen. "Those were not insurance forms," I said. She handed me a financial power of attorney, a real estate authorization, and a bank account access form. She had the signature lines pre-marked. She brought her own pen. She waited until I was medicated, disoriented, and alone. And she did it in the same building where her mother spent 19 years saving lives. Victoria's pen had stopped moving. She was looking at me with something that might have been anger on my behalf. "I came home on October 5th, I continued. 2 days later, Haley sent an email. Subject line, "Insurance documents. Please keep for your records." 4 PDF attachments. I was exhausted. I deleted it without opening a single file. I figured if it mattered, she would tell me. She did not tell me. She did not need to. She already had what she needed. Between October 22nd and October 24th, she used those documents to withdraw $260,000 from my accounts, and she listed my rental property in Aurora for sale at $540,000. I looked at Victoria. My daughter walked into that hospital room with a plan. She knew I was weak. She knew I trusted her. She waited for the exact right moment, and she struck. Victoria set her pen down. She was quiet for a moment. "Mr. Brennan," she said, "your daughter did not act alone. Everything you have described, the timing, the preparation, the forged documents, this was orchestrated. This man, Marcus, he is the architect, and we are going to prove it." I nodded. "But I need to do something first," I said. "What is that?" "I need to stop the sale of my house. And I need to make sure that when my daughter walks down that aisle on Saturday, she is walking toward a future that does not include a prison cell. Or at least, not a long one." Victoria opened her desk drawer and pulled out a legal pad. "Then let us get to work," she said. Victoria Chen worked fast. Within the first hour, she had a legal pad full of action items, 2 phone calls made, and a private investigator on retainer. "His name is Nathan Cross," she said, sliding a business card across the desk. "Former FBI. Best in Colorado for financial fraud. He will run a full background on Marcus Webb. Criminal history, business registrations, financial records, previous relationships, everything. 48 hours for a preliminary report. I nodded. Do it. She made the call right there. Gave Nathan the basics. Marcus Michael Webb, 35. Claims to be a health tech investor in Scottsdale. Possibly fraudulent business entity, MW Tech Ventures LLC. Possible connection to Salt Lake City. I want everything, she told him. Every alias, every address, every dollar. Next. She turned to me. You need to call your bank. Today. Right now. I pulled out my phone and dialed Karen Ogilvy at First National Credit Union in Lakewood. Karen had handled my accounts for 12 years. She knew Laura. She had come to the funeral. She was the kind of banker who still remembered your birthday. Karen, it is Mike Brennan. Mike. Her voice was warm. What can I do for you? I need you to freeze my accounts. Both of them. Checking and savings. Silence. Then typing. Mike. What is going on? My daughter withdrew $260,000 from my accounts without my authorization. She used a forged power of attorney. I need everything frozen immediately. More typing. I could hear her breathing change. Sharper. Professional. Mike. I am looking at the transactions now. 4 withdrawals between October 22nd and 24th. Haley Brennan. MW Tech Ventures LLC. Rocky Mountain Luxury Events. And a wire to Salt Lake City. Yes. None of those were authorized. I am freezing both accounts right now. No more transactions will go through. And Mike, I am flagging this as suspected elder financial abuse. Our fraud department will open an investigation. Elder financial abuse. The phrase I had taught other people to recognize. The phrase I had written on workshop handouts and projected on library screens. Now, it was being stamped on my own file. Thank you, Karen. There is also a pending sale on your rental property. 1547 Peoria Street, Aurora. Buyer listed as James and Patricia Holbrook. Sale price $540,000. Closing date November 8th. Can you stop it? I will contact the title company right now. Summit Title Group. The escrow officer is Daniel Rourke. I know him. I will have that escrow frozen before end of business today. I owe you, Karen. You do not owe me anything. Her voice softened. I am sorry this happened to you, Mike. I really am. I hung up and looked at Victoria. Accounts frozen. Title company next. Good, she said. Now police. I drove to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office on West 6th Avenue. The building was quiet for a Sunday. I walked up to the front desk and told the deputy I needed to file a report for financial fraud and elder abuse. They put me in an interview room. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, a table with 2 chairs. 10 minutes later, a detective walked in. Mid-40s, dark hair pulled back. Calm eyes that did not miss anything. Detective Rosa Martinez, she said, extending her hand. I handle fraud cases. Tell me what happened. I walked her through everything. The timeline, the withdrawals, the forged power of attorney, the fake business, the rental property. She took notes, asked precise questions, and did not interrupt once. When I finished, she set her pen down. Mr. Brennan, this is textbook elder financial abuse with elements of organized fraud. You have a strong case. Do you have documentation? I pulled out the folder Victoria had helped me organize. Bank statements, transaction records, printouts of the MW Tech Ventures search showing no registration, screenshots of the non-existent app. Martinez reviewed them carefully. This is thorough, very thorough. I was a fire chief for 32 years, I said. I know how to document an incident. She almost smiled. I can see that. I am opening an investigation. We will need to interview your daughter and her fiancé. But I have to be honest with you. Fraud cases take time. How long? Weeks. Maybe months. The wedding is Saturday. I understand. But I cannot stop a wedding, Mr. Brennan. I can only investigate the crimes. I clenched my jaw and nodded. Understood. I drove home at 5:30. The sun was dropping behind the Rockies, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The same sky Laura and I used to watch from the back porch. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a moment. Hands on the wheel. Exhausted. Frank Rossi's truck was parked at the curb. He was sitting on my front porch. 2 beers, on the step beside him. Figured you could use some company, he said. I could use an army, I said. He handed me a beer. I have got 2 bad knees and a blood pressure problem, but I am here. What do you need? I need a witness. And I need help thinking. We went inside. I grabbed a dry erase marker from the kitchen drawer and walked to the garage. The whiteboard I used for workshop planning was leaning against the wall. I set it on the workbench and started writing. Frank stood behind me with his arms crossed, watching the words go up. Incident command. Operation Brennan. Containment. Bank accounts frozen. Escrow frozen. No more money moves. Search and rescue. Pi, Nathan Cross. Background investigation, Marcus Webb. 48 hours. Hazmat. Police report filed. Detective Martinez. Jefferson County. Investigation open. Engine Company. Attorney Victoria Chen. Legal strategy in progress. Ventilation. Title Company. Summit Title Group. Escrow Officer, Daniel Rourke. Sale blocked. Frank read it twice. You are running this like a 5-alarm fire. Because it is one, I said. And my daughter is inside the building. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, What about Haley? What is the plan for her? I picked up the marker and wrote one more line at the bottom of the board. Rescue target. Haley Brennan. Frank nodded slowly. All right, Chief. What is the next move? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Haley's name on the screen. I held it up so Frank could see. I answered, Dad. Her voice was happy. Light. She had no idea. The wedding is Saturday, at Spruce Mountain Ranch. 6 in the evening. You should come. It would mean a lot to me. I looked at the whiteboard. I looked at the photo of Laura on the garage wall, tucked between my old helmet and the faded drawing of a fire truck. I looked at Frank, who was watching me with steady eyes. I will think about it, sweetheart, I said. I hung up. Frank raised an eyebrow. You are not going as a guest, are you? I set the phone down and turned back to the board. I am going, I said. But not to celebrate. I am going to watch. And when the smoke clears, I am going in for the rescue. The phone rang at 6:14 on a Thursday morning. I know the exact time because I was standing in the garage, staring at the whiteboard I had built 2 days earlier. Every line, every arrow, every name circled in red marker. I had spent 32 years responding to alarms in the middle of the night, and my body still woke before dawn, still expected the tone, still braced for someone else's emergency. But this time the emergency was mine. And the alarm was not a siren. It was my daughter's voice. I picked up on the 3rd ring. I did not rush. Rushing is how people die in fires. You move with purpose. You breathe. You assess. Haley did not give me time to assess. Dad, she said. Her voice was high and tight, the way it sounded when she was 9 years old, and broke the neighbor's window with a softball. I need you to listen to me and not say anything until I am finished. I leaned against the workbench. Laura's old garden gloves were still hanging on the pegboard behind me, exactly where she had left them in February of 2021. The faded green fabric, the dirt still embedded in the fingertips from the last time she planted columbines along the front walkway. I looked at those gloves and said, I am listening. Marcus and I are getting married this Saturday. You already know that. What you do not know is that we have spoken with a financial advisor and a care coordinator, and we believe it is in your best interest to transition into an assisted living community after the wedding. The facility is called Pineview Gardens. It is in Arvada. Marcus spoke to the director personally and secured a room for you starting November 1st. Your pension and Social Security will cover most of the monthly cost. We will manage the rest from the proceeds of the house sale. Proceeds of the house sale. She said it like she was reading a real estate listing. No emotion. No hesitation. My house. 1547 Peoria Street in Aurora. The house I bought in 2016 for $340,000. The house that was worth $540,000. The house whose escrow I had already frozen with the help of Victoria Chen and Daniel Rourke at Summit Title Group. Haley did not know about the freeze. She did not know about Nathan Cross, or Detective Rosa Martinez, or the Elder Financial Abuse Report. She did not know about any of it. Dad, are you still there? I am here, I said. I know this is a lot. But Marcus says this is the responsible thing to do. You are 60 years old. You live alone. You fell down the stairs and broke 2 ribs. What if something worse happens? We are trying to protect you. Protect me. I had crawled through collapsed roofs in 0 visibility. I had carried a 200-pound man down 4 flights during the Colfax Avenue apartment fire in 2011. I had held a dying woman's hand in a smoke-filled hallway while my team cut through a steel door behind me. And now my daughter. My only child. The girl who once drew a picture of me in my turnout gear with the caption, "My dad saves people," was telling me she needed to protect me by putting me in a facility and selling everything I owned. I closed my eyes. I remembered what Victoria had told me 2 days earlier. Michael, when she calls, and she will call, you need to stay calm. Do not confront. Do not accuse. Let her talk. Every word she says is evidence. So I let Haley talk. She told me Pineview Gardens had raised garden beds and a walking path around a small pond. She told me the rooms had emergency pull cords and 24-hour nursing staff. She told me there was a woodworking shop in the recreation building, as if that detail alone would make me grateful. She described it the way a car salesperson describes the leather seats and the sunroof. She was selling me my own cage. Then she said the thing that cracked the last piece of armor I had left. Mom would have wanted this, Dad. She would not have wanted you alone in that big house, falling downstairs in the dark. Laura would not have wanted this. Laura would have grabbed Haley by the shoulders and said, "What are you doing, baby girl?" Laura was an ICU nurse for 19 years. She read people the way I read fire. She would have seen through Marcus Webb in the first 5 minutes, the fake watch, the soft hands, the rehearsed compliments. But Laura was gone, and I was the one standing in the garage listening to our daughter sell my life to a con man. I took a breath. 4 seconds in. 4 seconds hold. 4 seconds out. Box breathing. We used it before entering structure fires. I used it now, before entering the most dangerous conversation of my life. Haley, I said, thank you for thinking about my well-being. Can I ask you one question? Of course, Dad. Have you already signed the listing agreement for the Aurora house? Or is that still pending? Silence. 7 seconds. In fire investigation, silence after a direct question means the person is calculating how much truth they can afford. I had conducted hundreds of post-fire interviews. I knew the math of hesitation. Marcus is handling that part, she said. He has a real estate contact who specializes in fast closings. Everything should be finalized by Friday. Friday. 1 day before the wedding. 1 day before they discovered the escrow freeze. 1 day before everything on my whiteboard would either hold or collapse. That sounds like you have it all figured out, I said. I am proud of how organized you are, sweetheart. The word sweetheart nearly broke me. It was Laura's word. Good night, sweetheart. Be good to your dad. The last thing Laura ever said to Haley from the ICU break room on March 7th, 2021. Thanks, Dad, Haley whispered. Her voice cracked, just slightly, like a beam under stress that has not yet failed. I know this is hard, but it is going to be okay. She hung up. I stood in the garage for a long time, watching dust float through the morning light, the way ash drifts after a fire has been knocked down. But the building is still too hot to enter. Then I called Victoria Chen. She answered on the second ring. She called, I said. What did she say? Victoria asked. I told her everything. The assisted living. Pineview Gardens. November 1st. The house closing Friday. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Nathan Cross finished the preliminary background report on Marcus Webb last night. Come to my office at 2. There are things you need to see. What kind of things? The kind of things that turn a civil case into a criminal one. I hung up. I looked at Laura's garden gloves one last time. Then I walked inside, showered, put on the navy suit I had worn to her funeral, and drove east toward Denver. The sun was behind me, throwing my shadow long and narrow down the highway like a fuse line burning towards something I could not yet see, but I could smell the smoke. And after 32 years, I always trusted the smoke. Victoria Chen's office smelled like black coffee and old paper. It was a small room on the 3rd floor of a brick building on Colfax Avenue, the kind of building that had survived 6 decades of Denver weather and still refused to lean. I had always liked that about old structures. They told you the truth. New buildings hid their flaws behind drywall and fresh paint. Old buildings showed you every crack, every place where the foundation had shifted and held. Victoria was already standing when I walked in at 1:58. She wore a dark gray blazer and no jewelry, except a thin silver watch. Her desk was covered with papers organized into 4 stacks, each held down by a different colored binder clip. She did not smile. Victoria Chen smiled when she greeted clients. She smiled when she explained legal strategy. She did not smile when the news was bad. Sit down, Michael, she said. I sat in the leather chair across from her desk. The same chair I had sat in 4 days earlier when I told her about the power of attorney and the frozen escrow. That conversation had felt like filing an incident report, controlled, methodical. This conversation felt different. This one felt like the moment dispatch tells you there are people still inside. Victoria pulled a manila folder from the second stack and placed it in front of me. The tab read, Webba, Marcus D. Cross. Investigation. Preliminary. It was thick. The kind of thick that meant Nathan Cross had not slept. Nathan spent 48 hours on Marcus Webb, Victoria said. Former FBI. 14 years in the Denver field office specializing in white-collar fraud. What he found is comprehensive. She turned the first page toward me. A photograph. Marcus Webb smiling in front of a leased BMW outside a restaurant in Scottsdale, Arizona. Date stamp August 2021. The same charcoal suit he had worn to my kitchen in June. The same fake Omega watch. The same smile that showed every tooth but never reached his eyes. His real name is Marcus David Weber, Victoria said. Born April 11th, 1989, in Pueblo, Colorado. He changed the spelling of his last name in 2017, dropped the ER ending, simplified it to just 2 letters. A small alteration. Just enough to complicate a basic background check. I stared at the photograph. The man who was going to marry my daughter in 2 days had started his career by changing his own name. In the fire service, we had a saying, if someone rearranges the furniture before you arrive, they are hiding the burn pattern. Victoria turned to a printed spreadsheet. 3 columns. Names, dates, amounts. Nathan identified 4 previous victims, she said. All women between 28 and 35. All with at least one financially stable parent. Danielle Herrera, 31. Scottsdale, Arizona. August 2021. Her father owned a chain of auto repair shops. Marcus moved in after a 3-month courtship. took $42,000 for a fake solar panel company, then disappeared with an additional $60,000 from her father's home equity line. Total $102,000. Karen Liu, 29. Salt Lake City, Utah, March 2022. Her mother was a retired school principal. Marcus presented himself as a healthcare consultant. $38,000 in direct transfers, plus a co-signed commercial lease that never materialized. Total losses, $91,000. Jennifer Okafor, 33. Boise, Idaho, January 2023. Her father was a widower and retired postal worker. Marcus proposed after 4 months, gained access to savings through a limited power of attorney signed during a medical procedure. $55,000 withdrawn. The engagement ended when Jennifer's brother, a Boise police officer, ran Marcus through the National Crime Information Center and found an outstanding warrant in Maricopa County for fraud. Rachel Sinclair, 28. Colorado Springs, September 2023. Her father was a disabled veteran on VA benefits. Marcus took $19,000 before Rachel discovered text messages with another woman. He left the state within 72 hours. Victoria closed the spreadsheet. 4 women in 4 states over 3 years. Total confirmed losses approximately $308,000. And that is only what Nathan verified in 48 hours. There may be more. I sat very still. I had spent my career reading damage, structural damage, fire damage, smoke damage. I knew how to walk into a destroyed building and calculate the point of origin, the fuel load, the speed of spread. I was looking at the same thing now, except the building was not made of wood and drywall. It was made of families. 4 daughters, 4 fathers. And Marcus David Weber had moved through them the way fire moves through a balloon frame house. Fast, hot, and invisible until the roof collapses. Nathan also pulled court records from Maricopa County, Victoria continued. Marcus was charged with felony fraud in 2022, related to the Herrera case. He failed to appear. A bench warrant was issued. It is still active. An active warrant, I said. Active. She confirmed. The moment law enforcement in any jurisdiction runs his real name, he is subject to arrest. Victoria placed both hands flat on the desk. Michael, this is no longer just a civil matter. Elder financial abuse, wire fraud, interstate fraud, forgery, identity manipulation, and an active bench warrant. Detective Martinez needs to see this file before Saturday. Before the wedding, I said. Before the wedding. I looked at the folder. 4 women, 4 families, $308,000. And in 48 hours, this man was going to stand at an altar at Spruce Mountain Ranch and promise to love my daughter forever. Victoria said one more thing as I picked up the folder. Your daughter is victim number 5. Do not forget that when it gets hard. I drove home with the folder on the passenger seat. The sun was going down behind the front range, painting the sky the color of embers. I had seen that color 1,000 times from the roof of a burning building. It meant the fire was not over. It meant the worst heat was still trapped inside, waiting for ventilation. I walked into the garage, picked up a red marker, and went to the whiteboard. Under hazmat, I crossed out the question mark next to Marcus Webb's name and wrote 4 words. Confirmed. Multiple prior victims. Then I circled Saturday and drew a single arrow from the word rescue to the word altar. 2 days. 48 hours. The same window I had given Nathan Cross to find Marcus Webb's past. Now, I had the same window to decide my daughter's future. I set down the marker and looked at Laura's garden gloves hanging on the pegboard. The faded green fabric. The dirt still in the fingertips. I know what you would do, I whispered. You would save her, even if she did not want to be saved. I turned off the garage light and went inside to call Frank Rossi. I needed my best man one more time. Frank Rossi arrived at my house at 7:45 that evening. He did not knock. He never knocked. In 34 years of friendship, Frank had walked through my front door exactly the way he walked through the bay doors at Station 3. Shoulders first, chin up. Already scanning the room for what needed fixing. He was 62 years old, 6 feet tall, and built like a man who had never stopped carrying hose packs up stairwells, even though he had retired from the Denver Fire Department 3 years before I did. His hair was silver now, cut short the way it had been since the academy in 1989, and his hands were the hands of a man who had pulled people out of burning cars and then gone home and built bookshelves for his grandchildren. He stood in my kitchen and looked at me the way he looked at a structure fire from the outside, reading it, calculating, deciding where to go in first. "You look like hell, Mike," he said. "I feel like hell." I said, "Good. That means you are paying attention." He set a brown paper bag on the counter. 2 sub sandwiches from Santiago's on Federal Boulevard. Italian with extra peppers. The same order we had shared every Friday night for 15 years when Laura was alive, and Frank's wife, Maria, would come over with a bottle of red wine, and the 4 of us would sit on the back porch and argue about whether the Broncos would ever find another quarterback. Maria had passed in 2019, pancreatic cancer. 8 months from diagnosis to funeral. Frank understood what it meant to lose the person who made your house a home. He never talked about it much. He did not need to. I could see it in the way he still wore his wedding ring on his left hand and Maria's on a chain around his neck, tucked inside his shirt where no one could see it but he could always feel it. We sat at the kitchen table, and I opened the folder Nathan Cross had built. I walked Frank through every page the way I would walk a team through a pre-incident plan before a high-rise operation. Methodical. Thorough. No emotion until the briefing was over. Frank listened without interrupting. He ate his sandwich slowly. He studied the photograph of Marcus in Scottsdale. He read each victim's name out loud, quietly, the way you read names at a memorial. Danielle Herrera, Karen Liu, Jennifer Okafor, Rachel Sinclair. When he finished, he set the last page down and wiped his hands on a napkin. 4 families, he said. 4 that we know of, I said. Frank leaned back in his chair. He looked past me, through the kitchen window, toward the backyard where Laura's garden had gone to seed. The columbines were still there, wild and untended, growing between the flagstones she had laid by hand in 2015. Frank had helped her carry those stones from a landscape supply yard in Golden. He had complained about his back for a week afterward, and Laura had laughed and told him firefighters were not supposed to have weak backs. "What is your plan?" he said. I told him. I laid it out the way. I had laid it out on the whiteboard in the garage. Victoria Chen would deliver the Nathan Cross file to Detective Rosa Martinez at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office on Friday morning. The file included the active bench warrant from Maricopa County, which gave Colorado law enforcement legal grounds to detain Marcus David Weber on site. Victoria had already spoken to Martinez by phone. Martinez had confirmed that a warrant from another state, combined with an active elder financial abuse investigation in Jefferson County, was sufficient for an arrest. The question was not whether Marcus would be arrested. The question was when and where. Victoria recommended Friday evening, I said. Before the wedding. A quiet arrest at the hotel where Marcus is staying. Clean. Controlled. No scene. Frank looked at me. "And what do you want?" "I want him arrested at the altar," I said. Frank did not blink. He did not argue. He picked up his sandwich, took a bite, chewed, swallowed, and said, "Tell me why." "Because Haley needs to see it," I said. "She needs to see who he is, in front of everyone. If we arrest him quietly in a hotel room on Friday night, Marcus becomes the victim. He becomes the man who was taken away before he could defend himself. Haley will believe his story. She will wait for him. She will blame me. But if she sees the handcuffs go on at the altar, in front of the guests, in front of the pastor, in front of the flowers and the cake and the string quartet, then she cannot unsee it. The image will stay with her. And maybe, just maybe, it will be the thing that breaks through. Frank was quiet for a long time. The kitchen clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a dog barked somewhere down West Maple Drive, and another dog answered from across the street. The ordinary sounds of a Thursday night in Lakewood, Colorado, in a house that used to be full of laughter and was now full of folders and red markers and the ghost of a woman who grew columbines. "You know she might never forgive you," Frank said. "I know. You know she might hate you for the rest of her life." "I know that too," Frank nodded. "Then I will be there. Whatever you need. You point. I carry. Same as always." I looked at my oldest friend, the man who had stood beside me at my wedding in Littleton in 1992, the man who had carried one end of Laura's casket in the snow in March of 2021, the man who had driven 45 minutes from his apartment in Arvada on a Thursday night because I called and said, "I need you." "Same as always," I said. We finished the sandwiches in silence. Frank washed his hands at the kitchen sink, dried them on the towel Laura had hung on the oven handle, and walked to the front door. He stopped with his hand on the knob. "Mike," he said, "that girl loves you. She is lost right now, but she loves you. And tomorrow, when this whole thing goes off, you remember that. You are not punishing her. You are pulling her out of a fire she does not know she is in." He left. I locked the door behind him. I walked to the garage and stood in front of the whiteboard one last time. Every line, every arrow, every name. I uncapped the red marker and wrote one final note at the bottom of the board. Friday. Deliver file to Martinez. Confirm arrest coordination. Wedding Saturday, 6 p.m. Spruce Mountain Ranch. I capped the marker. I turned off the light. I walked down the hallway to the bedroom and stopped at Laura's closet. The door was closed, the way it had been closed since the day she died. Behind that door was a box I had not opened in 3 years. A box Laura had labeled in her handwriting. "For Mike. When you are ready." I was not ready. Not yet. But I was close. I set my alarm for 5:30, lay down on my side of the bed, and stared at the ceiling in the dark. Tomorrow the dominoes would start falling. Tomorrow Detective Martinez would have the file. Tomorrow Marcus Webb's past would catch up with his future. And on Saturday, at 6 in the evening, in front of God and guests and columbines, I would send the fire department to the altar. I closed my eyes. For the first time in weeks, I did not dream about Laura dying. I dreamed about her laughing. I woke at 5:28, 2 minutes before the alarm. 32 years of shift work had trained my body to wake before the bell, the way a dog hears the truck before the siren starts. I lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling in the gray light. Laura's side of the bed was smooth and cold. It had been smooth and cold for 3 years, 5 months, and 23 days. I had stopped counting months somewhere around the 2nd year. But the days kept counting themselves, stubborn and precise, like a meter that no one had turned off. I showered. I shaved. I put on a clean white shirt and dark slacks, not the navy suit. The navy suit was for tomorrow. Today was operational. Today was the day the file reached Detective Rosa Martinez, and every decision I had made since 6:14 yesterday morning would either prove right or fall apart. I made coffee in the kitchen. Laura's mug was still in the cabinet, the one Haley had painted at a ceramic studio when she was 11 years old. It was white with uneven blue flowers and the words "Best Mom Ever" in a child's handwriting that leaned hard to the left. I used my own mug. I had always used my own mug. But I looked at Laura's every morning, the way a captain checks the flag before leaving the station. It was still there. The mission was still active. Victoria Chen called at 7:15. Her voice was sharp and focused, the voice of a woman who had already been working for 2 hours. I am leaving for the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office in 20 minutes, she said. I have the full Nathan Cross file, the forged power of attorney analysis, your bank records, the escrow freeze documentation, and a written statement from Daniel Rourke at Summit Title, confirming the irregular sale attempt on 1547 Peoria Street. I also have your signed affidavit from Wednesday. Is there anything you want to add before I deliver? I thought for a moment. Tell Martinez about the phone call yesterday morning. Haley mentioned Pineview Gardens in Arvada. She said Marcus had personally secured a room for me starting November 1st. That means he has been planning my removal for weeks. This was not impulsive. This was a timeline. Victoria paused. I could hear her writing. Good, she said. That strengthens the premeditation argument. Anything else? Tell her I want the arrest to happen at the wedding. Saturday, 6 p.m. Spruce Mountain Ranch. Michael, Victoria said carefully. That is not my decision or yours. That is law enforcement's call. I can request coordination, but Martinez will make the final determination based on officer safety, flight risk, and prosecutorial strategy. I understand, I said. But make the case. He has an active bench warrant from Maricopa County. He has a pattern of running. Every time a previous victim got close to the truth, he disappeared within 72 hours. If we arrest him at the hotel tonight and something goes wrong, if he sees it coming, if someone tips him off, he vanishes again. But at the altar, he is standing still. He is surrounded by witnesses. He is not expecting anything except applause. Victoria was quiet for 3 seconds. I will make the case, she said. I will call you by noon. The morning moved slowly. I cleaned the kitchen. I swept the garage. I stood in front of the whiteboard and reviewed every line, every arrow, every name. The way I used to review incident action plans before a wildfire deployment. Containment. Search and rescue. Hazmat. Engine company. Ventilation. Rescue target Haley Brennan. Everything was in place. Everything except the one variable I could not control. My daughter's heart. At 9:45, my phone buzzed. A text from Haley. Hi, Dad. Tomorrow is the big day. I really hope you will come. It would mean everything to me. Marcus wants you there too. We saved you a seat in the front row. I read the message 4 times. Marcus wants you there too. Of course he did. He wanted me in the front row so every guest could see the father of the bride smiling, approving, blessing the union. My presence was not an invitation. It was a prop. I typed back 3 words. I will be there. I did not add a period. I did not add an exclamation point. I did not add a heart or a smiley face. 3 words. Flat and true. The same 3 words I had said to every firefighter who ever asked me if I would be on scene when the roof came down. I will be there. It meant something different every time. At 11:52, Victoria called. Martinez agreed, she said. Saturday arrest. 6 p.m. Spruce Mountain Ranch. She is coordinating with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office since the venue is in their jurisdiction. 2 plainclothes detectives will be positioned inside the venue as guests. 2 uniformed deputies will be staged in the parking lot. Martinez herself will be in an unmarked vehicle on the access road. The arrest will be executed after the officiant asks if anyone objects, or immediately after the vows, whichever comes first. Marcus David Weber will be detained on the active Maricopa County bench warrant and a new Colorado warrant for elder financial abuse, forgery, and wire fraud. Haley will not be arrested at the scene, but she will be served with a notice to appear within 14 days. I sat down at the kitchen table. My hands were steady. My breathing was even. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. What about the guests? I said. Martinez will have a victim advocate on site, Victoria said. Someone trained in family crisis intervention. This is not the first time law enforcement has made an arrest at a public event. They have protocols. I closed my eyes. I pictured Spruce Mountain Ranch. I had never been there, but I had looked it up online the night Haley first mentioned it. A stone and timber lodge at the base of a rocky hillside south of Denver. Pine trees, mountain views, an outdoor ceremony area with wooden benches and a natural stone altar. The kind of place Laura would have loved. The kind of place that deserved joy, not handcuffs. But fires do not care about architecture. They burn through beautiful buildings the same way they burn through abandoned warehouses. The only thing that matters is whether someone responds in time. At 2:15, Frank called. "You okay?" he said. "No," I said. "But I am ready." "Good enough," he said. "I will pick you up tomorrow at 4. Wear the suit. And Mike, eat something tonight. You are no good to anyone if you pass out at a wedding." I almost smiled. Almost. The rest of Friday passed in a strange, stretched silence. I walked through the house room by room, the way I used to walk through a structure after the fire was out, checking for hidden embers in the walls, hot spots that could reignite when everyone thought the danger had passed. I stopped at Laura's closet door. The box was still there. "For Mike, when you are ready." I pressed my palm flat against the wood and held it there for a long time. "Tomorrow," I said. "I will open it tomorrow." I went to bed at 10. I set the alarm for 4:30. I lay in the dark and listened to the house breathe, the furnace cycling, the refrigerator humming, the old bones of a Lakewood home settling into another Colorado night. Somewhere south of Denver, at Spruce Mountain Ranch, someone was probably hanging white ribbons and arranging flower centerpieces and testing a sound system for a wedding that would never finish. I closed my eyes and waited for morning. The alarm went off at 4:30 on a Saturday morning in late October, and for the first time in 3 years I did not reach over to silence it immediately. I let it ring. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. 7 seconds. The sound filled the bedroom the way a tone fills a fire station, sharp and absolute. A line drawn between the world before and the world after. Today was my daughter's wedding day. Today was the day 2 plainclothes detectives would sit among the guests at Spruce Mountain Ranch, and 2 uniformed deputies would wait in the parking lot, and Detective Rosa Martinez would watch from an unmarked vehicle on the access road. Today was the day I would either save my daughter or lose her forever. I showered and shaved. I combed my hair, which was thinner than it had been when Laura used to run her fingers through it on Sunday mornings and say, "You still have more hair than Frank," which is not saying much. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, 60 years old. A scar on the left side of my jaw from falling debris at the Brighton Boulevard warehouse fire in 2008. Gray at the temples. Steady hands. I looked like a man who was about to attend a wedding. I did not look like a man who was about to end one. I put on the Navy suit. The last time I had worn it was March of 2021, standing in the snow at Fort Logan National Cemetery while a bagpiper played Amazing Grace and my daughter whispered, "I will take care of you, Dad." The suit was a little loose in the shoulders, the way clothes get loose when grief takes 10 pounds off you and you never put them back on. I straightened the tie and said out loud, "You are going to work. This is a job. Do the job." Then I walked to Laura's closet. The door had been closed for 3 years, 5 months, and 24 days. I had painted it white in 2014, when Laura decided the bedroom needed brightening. She had stood behind me with a cup of tea and said, "You missed a spot." And I had said, "Where?" And she had said, "I do not know. I just like watching you bend over." She laughed so hard she spilled the tea. I could still see the faint outline of the stain in the right light, a small ghost of an ordinary afternoon. I turned the knob and opened the door. Her clothes were still there. Blouses on the left, arranged by color. Scrubs in the middle, teal and navy. The uniform of 19 years in the UC Health ICU. Dresses on the right. The black one from Frank and Maria's anniversary dinner. The green one from Haley's high school graduation. The red one from our 25th anniversary at Rioja on Larimer Square, when she ordered the lamb and I ordered the wrong wine and she drank it anyway and said, It is perfect because you chose it. On the shelf above the hanging rod, behind a stack of folded sweaters, was the box. Medium-sized cardboard, sealed with clear packing tape. On the top, in Laura's handwriting, blue ink on white cardboard, 6 words, for Mike. When you are ready. I had known about this box since the week after her funeral. Haley had found it and handed it to me and said, "Mom must have packed this before she got sick." I had placed it on the shelf and closed the door and not touched it since. Not because I was afraid. Because as long as the box stayed closed, there was still something left to discover. Still one more conversation with the woman who had spent 29 years surprising me. But today was not a day for holding things closed. Today was a day for opening doors and letting the truth walk through them. I lifted the box down and sat on the bed. I peeled the tape slowly, the way you peel back drywall when you are looking for fire inside a wall. You do not rush. You expose the damage one layer at a time. Inside were 4 items. The first was a letter. A white envelope with my name in Laura's handwriting. I set it aside. The second was a photograph. Laura and me on our wedding day in Littleton, June 14th, 1992. Frank was behind us throwing rice. Laura's veil was caught in the wind, and she was laughing with her whole face, eyes closed, mouth wide open, one hand holding my arm and the other reaching for the veil. I had never seen this photograph before. Her own private copy of a private memory. The third was a small velvet jewelry box. Inside was Laura's nursing pin from UC Health, the one she received after 10 years of service. A gold pin shaped like a lamp, engraved Laura M. Brennan, RN. She had worn it every shift for 9 years. The fourth was a single handwritten page, undated. At the top, Laura had written, "Things I want Mike to remember." Below it, 10 lines in her neat, steady handwriting. I read them 3 times with tears running down my face and my hands shaking for the first time in as long as I could remember. The 6th line said, "Haley is not me, but she has my heart. Be patient with her. She will find her way back." I placed everything back in the box except the letter, which I put in the inside pocket of my navy suit jacket, against my chest, where I could feel its weight against my ribs. At 4 o'clock exactly, Frank Rossi's truck pulled into my driveway. A silver 2019 Ford F-150 with a Denver Fire Department retired sticker on the rear window and a faded Broncos bumper sticker that Maria had put on in 2015 and Frank had never removed. He was wearing a dark suit and a tie knotted slightly too thick, the way it had been knotted at every formal event since 1989. I locked the front door. I walked to the truck, carrying nothing except the letter against my chest and the knowledge of what was coming. "You ready?" Frank said through the open window. I got in and closed the door. The drive to Spruce Mountain Ranch was 45 minutes south on Interstate 25, 45 minutes of highway and pine trees and the Front Range turning gold in the late afternoon light. Every decision had already been made. There was nothing left to think about, and everything left to feel. "Let us go," I said. Frank backed out of the driveway and turned south. I did not look back at the house. Everything I needed was in the suit, in the pocket, in the letter from a woman who had known me better than I knew myself. The sun was low and heavy, the color of a controlled burn, the kind of fire you set on purpose to stop a bigger fire from spreading. That was what today was. A controlled burn, and I was the one holding the match. Spruce Mountain Ranch sat at the end of a 2-lane road that curved through a stand of ponderosa pines before opening into a wide gravel lot bordered by split-rail fencing. The late afternoon sun hit the stone and timber lodge from the west, turning the walls amber and throwing long shadows across the grass where white folding chairs had been arranged in 2 sections of 8 rows each, divided by a narrow aisle covered in cream-colored fabric. At the end of the aisle, a natural stone altar stood beneath a wooden arch, wrapped in eucalyptus and white roses. Behind the arch, the foothills rolled south toward Pikes Peak, bruised purple against the October sky. It was beautiful. It was the kind of place Laura would have stood in silence for a full minute, her hand over her heart, before whispering, "This is where I would have married you, if we had the money." We did not have the money in 1992. We had a small chapel in Littleton and a reception in Frank's backyard, with a folding table and a sheet cake from King Soopers. Laura had worn her mother's dress. I had worn a rented suit that was too short in the sleeves. It was perfect. Frank parked the truck at the far end of the lot, near a row of catering vans and a white tent, where staff moved between tables carrying trays of glasses and folded napkins. I counted the vehicles. 23 cars. A Blacktown car that I assumed belonged to Marcus, or whoever was pretending to be his family. A silver SUV with a Douglas County Sheriff plate tucked behind a maintenance shed, positioned to see the lot entrance without being seen. That was one. I scanned the rest of the lot. An unmarked dark blue sedan near the tree line, backed in, engine off, windows slightly tinted. That was two. Martinez. I did not look for the plainclothes detectives. They were already inside. They would look like guests. They would smile and hold drinks and make small talk. That was their job. My job was to sit in the front row and be a father. Frank and I walked toward the entrance. The air smelled like pine resin and charcoal from a warming fire someone had lit in a stone pit near the cocktail area. I breathed it in. I had spent my life surrounded by the smell of burning things. Wood, plastic, insulation, gasoline, human skin. You learn to read smoke the way a doctor reads blood work. Each fire has a signature. Each smoke tells you what is feeding it, and how fast it is moving, and how long you have before the structure fails. The smoke at Spruce Mountain Ranch smelled clean. Cedar and pine. A controlled flame. But somewhere inside the lodge, in a groom's suite or a hallway or a bathroom mirror, Marcus David Weber was adjusting his tie and rehearsing his vows. And the invisible smoke he carried was the most toxic kind. The kind that kills slowly. The kind you do not smell until it is too late. A young woman in a black dress and headset met us at the entrance. She held a clipboard and smiled the professional smile of someone who had coordinated 200 events and still believed in love. "Welcome," she said. "Names, please." "Michael Brennan," I said. "Father of the bride." Her smile widened. She checked the list, made a small mark, and gestured toward the outdoor ceremony area. "Right this way, Mr. Brennan. You are in the front row, left side." She paused. "Your daughter asked me to tell you she is so glad you came." "Thank you," I said. Frank gave his name. He was listed as a guest of the bride's family, second row. He squeezed my shoulder as we walked through the lodge and out the back doors onto the stone patio that led to the ceremony lawn. I saw the chairs. I saw the guests, perhaps 60 or 70, already seated or standing in small groups near the cocktail tables. I saw white flowers in mason jars along the aisle. I saw candles in glass holders lining the stone altar. I saw a string quartet setting up to the left of the arch, a cellist tuning, a violinist adjusting her chin rest. I saw all of it the way I used to see the interior of a burning building on first entry, not as a scene, as a map. Exits, obstacles, occupants, hazards. I located the two plainclothes detectives within 30 seconds. A man in a navy blazer standing near the bar, holding a glass of sparkling water, his eyes moving in a pattern that had nothing to do with the music. A woman in a burgundy dress sitting in the fourth row on the groom's side, her clutch purse slightly too large, her posture slightly too straight. They were good. Anyone else would have seen a guest enjoying a drink and a woman waiting for the ceremony. I saw two operators staged for a tactical response. I had worked alongside law enforcement at fire scenes for 3 decades. I knew the look. Relaxed hands. Tense eyes. Weight on the balls of the feet. Frank sat down in the second row. I sat in the front row, left side, aisle seat. The chair was white wood, with a thin cushion. A small program had been placed on each seat. Haley and Marcus. October 26th, 2024. 6 o'clock in the evening. The cover was printed on heavy cream paper, with gold lettering, and a watercolor illustration of the mountain behind us. I opened it. The order of ceremony listed processional, readings, vows, ring exchange, pronouncement, recessional. Under the groom's family, it read Richard and Linda Webb, parents of the groom. The same fake names from the dinner at Guard and Grace. Andrea Liu and Greg Thornton, playing their roles to the end. I closed the program and placed it on my lap. I reached into my jacket and touched the envelope against my chest. Laura's letter. Unread. I could feel the paper through the fabric, thin and warm from my body heat, like a hand pressing gently against my ribs. The string quartet began playing Pachelbel's canon. The guests quieted. Heads turned toward the lodge. The late sun dropped another inch behind the foothills, and the light shifted from gold to copper, and the shadows of the pine trees stretched across the ceremony lawn like long dark fingers reaching for the altar. I sat very still. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out. The back doors of the lodge opened. Marcus David Weber stepped out into the October light. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit and a white boutonniere, and the smile I had seen in the Scottsdale photograph, every tooth showing, nothing reaching his eyes. He walked to the altar and stood with his hands clasped in front of him, facing the aisle, waiting for my daughter. I watched him. I watched him the way I watched a ceiling in a structure fire, looking for the sag, the discoloration, the first sign that the weight above was about to come down. He looked calm. He looked confident. He looked like a man who believed he had already won. He had not looked at the parking lot. He had not noticed the unmarked sedan near the tree line or the silver SUV behind the maintenance shed. He had not read the navy blazer at the bar or the burgundy dress in the fourth row. He had not seen the father of the bride touch his chest, where a dead woman's letter lay folded against his heart. He saw none of it. Because men like Marcus David Weber only see what they want to take. They never see what is coming to stop them. The music shifted. The guests stood. And at the far end of the aisle, the doors opened again, and there was Haley. My daughter was wearing white. Not the bright theatrical white of a magazine cover, but a soft, warm white, the color of cream left in a pitcher on a Sunday morning table. The dress was simple. Long sleeves, a modest neckline, lace along the hem that moved when she moved, like foam at the edge of a slow wave. Her hair was pulled back and pinned with small flowers I could not name. But Laura would have known them all. Laura knew every flower that grew in Colorado. She whispered them on hikes the way other people whisper prayers. Columbine, Indian paintbrush, alpine, forget-me-not. Haley stood at the end of the aisle alone. There was no one to walk her. I was in the front row. Her mother was in a box in my jacket pocket. She held a small bouquet of white peonies and eucalyptus against her waist, and for a moment she did not move. She looked down the aisle at Marcus, and her face did something I had not seen in a very long time. It softened. The hardness that had crept into her jaw over the past year, the sharpness behind her eyes when she talked about money or the future Marcus had promised, all of it melted away. What was left was the face of a girl I remembered. The girl who sat on my shoulders at the 4th of July parade in downtown Denver in 2001. The girl who fell asleep in the truck on the drive home from Kenosha Pass every autumn. The girl who pressed her face against the glass at the fire station when she was 6 and whispered, "Daddy, the trucks are sleeping." She was 30 years old. She had stolen $260,000 from my accounts. She had forged a power of attorney while I lay medicated in a hospital bed. She had tried to sell my house and put me in a facility, and standing at the end of that aisle, she looked like the most lost person I had ever seen. She began to walk. The string quartet played something slow, with a pull to it, like a current beneath still water. Haley moved with small, careful steps, her eyes on Marcus, her bouquet trembling in her hands. She passed the woman in the burgundy dress in the 4th row. She passed the guests who smiled and reached for her arm. She passed Frank Rossi in the 2nd row, whose jaw was tight and whose eyes were on me instead of her. Then she reached my row, and she stopped. She turned and looked at me. Her eyes were wet. Her lips pressed together the way they used to when she was trying not to cry after a scraped knee or a bad grade. Or the morning I told her that her mother was not coming home. "You came," she said. "I told you I would," I said. She squeezed my hand. Her fingers were cold and thin and shaking. I held them for 3 seconds. I felt the bones beneath the skin, the same bones I had held when she was an infant at Swedish Medical Center in 1994, so small that her entire hand wrapped around my index finger and could not reach the other side. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. "I love you too," I said. She let go. She walked the last 10 feet to the altar, where Marcus David Weber stood in his charcoal suit with his white boutonniere and the smile that never reached his eyes. He took her hand. The officiant welcomed the guests. He spoke about love and commitment and the journey two people take when they build a life together. I heard the words, "The way you hear an alarm that has been ringing so long, it becomes air." I watched Marcus. I watched the way he held Haley's hand, loose and performative, the way a man holds a prop. I watched his eyes scanning the crowd every few seconds, reading the room, calculating. I had seen that behavior at fire scenes. It was the behavior of someone who knows the building is about to be investigated and is looking for the exits. Marcus spoke his vows first. Memorized. Practiced. Each word placed like a tile in a pattern he had laid before. "I promise to protect you. I promise to provide for you. I promise to build a life worthy of your trust." I heard the echo of 4 women in 4 states who had heard the same words from the same mouth. Danielle Herrera in Scottsdale. Karen Liu in Salt Lake City. Jennifer Okafor in Boise. Rachel Sinclair in Colorado Springs. 4 altars. 4 sets of vows that meant nothing. Haley spoke next. She unfolded a small piece of paper with trembling hands. Her voice broke on the second sentence. She talked about losing her mother. She talked about the darkness that followed. She talked about meeting Marcus and feeling, for the first time since March of 2021, that someone was holding her up. "I found you when I was drowning," she said, "and you taught me how to breathe again." I closed my eyes and saw Laura in our kitchen in Lakewood, stirring marinara sauce, looking over her shoulder with that half-amused, half-knowing expression that said, "I see you, and I love what I see." I opened my eyes. Haley was crying. Marcus was not. The officiant turned a page. He looked out at the guests with practiced warmth. "Before we proceed to the exchange of rings, as is tradition, I must ask. If anyone present knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. I did not speak. I did not stand. I did not need to. From the back of the ceremony lawn, near the stone patio where the lodge doors opened onto the grass, I heard footsteps. 2 sets. Measured and deliberate, the way boots sound on a station floor when the alarm has dropped and the crew is moving with purpose. I kept my eyes on Marcus, and I watched his face change. It started in the eyes. The scanning stopped. The calculation stopped. Something moved in that I had seen 1,000 times in burning buildings, when a person understands that the room they are in has no exit. Recognition. Not of the people behind him, of the moment. Of the weight of 30 years of running, finally catching up to a man who never once looked back. The footsteps reached the 3rd row. The 2nd row. Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out, and from behind me, a voice I had never heard, calm and clear, and carrying the full authority of the state of Colorado, said 5 words that ended everything. "Marcus Weber, you are under arrest." The first scream came from the groom's side. A woman in the 3rd row pressed both hands over her mouth and made a sound that was not a word, but was understood by everyone. It was the sound people make when the world rearranges itself without warning. When the floor they were standing on turns out to be a trapdoor. 2 men in dark suits walked past me. I watched their reflections in the glass candle holders on the altar. two shapes moving with the unhurried precision of people who have done this before and understand that speed creates panic but calm creates compliance. The man on the left was taller, his badge now visible on a lanyard pulled from inside his jacket. The woman in the burgundy dress had risen from the fourth row and was moving along the outside edge of the chairs toward the altar, her oversized clutch open, her hand resting on something inside that was not a phone. Marcus did not run. Every previous time, in Scottsdale, in Salt Lake City, in Boise, in Colorado Springs, he had disappeared within 72 hours. But you cannot disappear from an altar when 70 people are staring at you and 2 officers are 3 feet away and your hands are still holding the bride's fingers. Marcus Weber, the taller officer said, "You are under arrest on an outstanding warrant from Maricopa County, Arizona, and on new charges filed in the state of Colorado, including elder financial abuse, forgery, and wire fraud. Please release the bride's hands and place your arms at your sides." Marcus looked at Haley. Not at the officers. Not at the guests. At Haley. And for the first time since I had met him in my kitchen in June, I saw something on his face that was not performance. It was calculation collapsing. The moment a con man realizes the con is over and there is no smile, no rehearsed line that will change what is happening. "Haley," he said quietly. "Baby, listen to me. This is a misunderstanding." Haley did not move. She stood at the altar, with her bouquet crushed against her chest, white petals falling to the stone floor like snow shaken from a branch. Her face was blank, not angry, not sad, blank. I knew that face. I had seen it on civilians standing outside their burning homes at 3 in the morning. They do not cry immediately. They stand and watch, because the brain needs time to accept that the thing it is seeing is real. The officer stepped forward. "Sir, release the bride's hands." Now. Marcus let go. His arms dropped. The second officer pulled his wrists together and secured them with handcuffs that clicked once, twice, in the silence that had swallowed the ceremony. The string quartet had stopped. The cellist held her bow above the strings, as if the music had been surgically removed from the air. Guests were standing, phones raised. Someone in the back row was recording. The officiant had stepped backward, holding his leather book against his chest like a shield. The woman in the burgundy dress reached Haley. "Ma'am," she said softly, "my name is Detective Sarah Langford, Douglas County Sheriff. I need you to step to the side with me. You are not under arrest, but I need to speak with you." Haley did not respond. She was staring at Marcus. He was being turned away from the altar, guided between the rows of chairs, walking back down the aisle he would never walk as a husband. His charcoal suit, his white boutonniere already crooked, his wrists behind his back. He passed the 3rd row, the 2nd row. He passed Frank Rossi, who sat with his hands folded and his eyes forward, giving nothing away. Then he passed my row, and he looked at me. 2 seconds, maybe 3. His eyes met mine, and I saw it all. The recognition, the understanding. He knew. He knew the frozen escrow and the background check and the file on Martinez's desk had all come from the man in the front row wearing a navy suit with a dead woman's letter in his pocket. His mouth moved. No sound came out, but I read the words on his lips the way I read smoke from a distance. "You did this." I held his gaze. I did not blink. I did not nod. I simply watched him walk away, the same way I had watched buildings collapse after an evacuation was complete. You do not celebrate a collapse. You do not cheer when the roof comes down. You watch and you account for every soul. And you confirm that everyone who needed saving has been saved. Marcus disappeared through the lodge doors. 2 uniformed deputies met him inside. I heard the faint crackle of a radio. The words transport and custody. Then, the doors closed, and he was gone. Haley screamed. It was not the polite gasp of a shocked guest. It was the scream of a woman whose entire future had been demolished in front of everyone she knew. It came from deep inside her chest, a place where grief and confusion and betrayal had been compressed into a single sound that split the October air like a crack in a windshield, spreading from a single point of impact. "Dad." She was looking at me, her face shattered, tears running through her makeup, the bouquet on the stone floor. "What did you do? What did you do?" I stood up. My legs were steady. My hands were steady. Everything was steady. Because I had trained my body for 32 years to be steady when the world was falling apart. I looked at my daughter, my only child. The girl who once drew a picture of me in turnout gear with the caption, "My dad saves people." And I said the only true thing I had left. "I saved you, Haley." That is what I did. She collapsed inward. The way a structure collapses when the supporting walls fail and everything folds toward the center. Her shoulders dropped. Her chin dropped. Detective Langford was beside her, one hand on her back. The victim advocate, a woman in a gray suit, appeared on Haley's other side and spoke in a low voice I could not hear. Haley looked back at me one more time as they led her toward the lodge. Her eyes were red and swollen and furious and terrified and young. 30 years old, and she looked like she was 9 again. Standing in the kitchen, holding the broken pieces of something she did not mean to drop. Then she was gone. The lodge doors closed. Frank stood up and put his hand on my shoulder. He did not speak. I reached into my jacket and touched the letter. Laura's letter. Still unread. Still warm from my body. I thought about the 6th line on Laura's list. "Haley is not me, but she has my heart. Be patient with her. She will find her way back." I stood at the altar of Spruce Mountain Ranch, surrounded by white flowers and empty chairs and candles still burning in their glass holders, and I held on to that line the way a drowning man holds on to a rope thrown from a bridge. She will find her way back. She has to. The guests left slowly. The way people leave a building after a fire alarm that turned out to be real. They moved in small clusters, whispering, glancing back at the altar, as if expecting someone to announce that it had all been part of the ceremony. No one made that announcement. The candles burned down in their glass holders. The white flowers wilted under the last of the October light. The string quartet packed their instruments without speaking, the cellist sliding her bow into a velvet-lined case with the care of someone handling evidence. Frank drove me home. We did not talk for the first 20 minutes. The highway was dark, and the headlights cut a narrow tunnel through the pine trees along Interstate 25. I sat with my hands on my knees, and Laura's letter in my pocket, and the image of Haley's face burned into the back of my eyelids. Red eyes. Smeared makeup. The word "Dad," shaped like a wound. Frank broke the silence near Castle Rock. "You did the right thing, Mike." "I know," I said. "That does not mean it will feel right for a while." "I know that too." He dropped me off at 9:15. I stood in the driveway and watched his taillights disappear down West Maple Drive. The house was dark. The porch light had burned out 3 weeks ago, and I had not replaced it because replacing it meant climbing a ladder, and climbing a ladder meant admitting I was 60 years old and alone. I went inside. I locked the door. I sat at the kitchen table where Laura and I had eaten 10,000 meals, and Haley had done her homework, and Frank and Maria had argued about the Broncos, and the marinara sauce had simmered on the stove every Sunday until the Sunday it stopped. I took the letter out of my jacket pocket. The envelope was soft from a day against my chest. My name in Laura's handwriting. The same handwriting on grocery lists and birthday cards. And the note she taped to the bathroom mirror every anniversary. I turned it over. The seal was still intact. Laura had licked it closed. I thought about that. Her tongue on the paper. The last physical thing she had given me that I had not yet touched. I opened it carefully, sliding my finger under the flap the way you open a door when you do not know what is on the other side. 2 pages, front and back. Blue ink on lined paper. The date at the top was February 14th, 2021. Valentine's Day. 3 weeks before she died. "Dear Mike," it began. "I am writing this because I have a feeling I am not going to get the chance to say it. The ICU is full. We lost 2 patients yesterday, and 3 the day before, and I am tired in a way that sleep does not fix. I do not want you to worry. You will worry anyway because that is who you are. You run into buildings that are on fire because you cannot stand the idea of someone burning alone. That is why I married you. Not because you were brave. Because you could not help it. I set the letter down. I pressed my palms flat on the table. 4 seconds in. 4 seconds hold. 4 seconds out. Then I picked it up again. There are things I need to tell you, and I do not know how much time I have, so I am going to be direct, which you always said was my best and most annoying quality. First, the house. Do not sell it. I know it is too big for one person. I know the yard is too much work. Keep it. That house is not wood and plaster. It is 30 years of us. Every wall remembers something. Let them remember. Second, Haley. She is going to fall apart when I am gone. She will not show it the way you show it. She will get hard. She will get distant. She will make decisions that do not make sense, because grief does not make sense. Do not give up on her. She has my heart even when she does not act like it. Third, you. Michael Patrick Brennan. You are the best man I have ever known, and I am including Frank in that comparison. So do not tell him. You saved people for a living, and then you came home and saved me every single day just by being in the room. I need you to save yourself now. I need you to eat breakfast. I need you to let Frank drag you to that terrible sports bar on Colfax. I need you to live, Mike. Not just exist. Live. Fourth, if you are reading this, then you open the box, which means you were ready, which means something happened that forced you to stop waiting and start moving. Good. Whatever that something is, walk toward it. Do not come back to this closet and sit in my clothes and breathe me in and stay. Walk forward. I will be with you. I am always with you. I am the smoke you cannot see, but always trust. I love you. I love you. I love you. Laura. I folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. I set it on the table next to a salt shaker and a small ceramic bowl Haley had made in second-grade art class. I sat in the kitchen of the house Laura told me to keep, and I let the tears come. Not the controlled tears of a man who compartmentalizes. Not the silent tears I had cried in the garage at 2 a.m. for 3 years. The other kind. The kind that come from the center of your chest and shake your whole body and make sounds you did not know you could make. The kind that come when someone you love reaches across death and holds your face in their hands and says, "Keep going." I cried for Laura. I cried for Haley. I cried for the wedding that ended in handcuffs and the daughter who screamed, "What did you do?" and the man in the charcoal suit who would now sit in a cell while every lie he ever told collapsed around him. Then I stopped. I washed my face at the kitchen sink. I dried my hands on the towel Laura had hung on the oven handle. I picked up my phone and called Victoria Chen. It was late. She answered anyway. "The letter," I said. "Laura wrote me a letter." "What did it say?" "It said to keep going." "Then keep going, Michael. Marcus's preliminary hearing is within 72 hours. Haley's notice to appear is in 14 days. I need you in my office Monday morning at 9. "I will be there," I said. I placed the letter in the drawer next to Laura's reading glasses and a photograph of Haley on her first day of kindergarten, grinning so wide you could count every missing tooth. I turned off the kitchen light. I walked to the bedroom. I did not close Laura's closet door. I left it open for the first time in 3 years because Laura told me to stop going back and start walking forward, and an open door only works if you do not shut it behind you. I lay down. The house was quiet. The furnace hummed. The October wind moved through the pines outside the window, a sound Laura used to call the mountain breathing. Tomorrow was Sunday. Monday was Victoria's office. 14 days was Haley's court date. And somewhere between a father's love and a daughter's fury, there was a road that led back. Laura said she would find it. I believed her. Monday came the way all Mondays come after the worst weekend of your life. Ordinary. indifferent. The sun rose over the Front Range and did not care that a wedding had ended in handcuffs, or that a daughter had screamed at her father, or that a woman dead for 3 years had written a letter that broke him open and put him back together. In the same night, the sun just rose. That is what it does. Fires burn and people grieve, and the sun keeps showing up like a shift worker who never calls in sick. I drove to Victoria Chen's office at 8:30. She had coffee waiting. She always had coffee waiting. I had known her for 11 days, and she had already become one of the most reliable people in my life, which said something about her, and something about how small my life had become. "Here is where we are," she said. Marcus David Weber was booked at Douglas County Detention Facility Saturday evening. Elder financial abuse, first-degree forgery, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft from an at-risk adult. Preliminary hearing Wednesday at 10. Bond will be requested, but given the flight risk, the out-of-state warrant, and the pattern of interstate fraud, I expect the judge to deny it. "And Haley," I said. Haley was served the notice to appear Saturday evening by Detective Langford. She is required before Jefferson County Court within 14 days. The charges being considered are complicity in elder financial abuse and forgery. Victoria paused. However, the district attorney is willing to discuss a reduced charge or diversion program if Haley cooperates fully. Testimony. Financial disclosure. Admitting what she did. "I want to help her," I said. "Whatever that looks like legally," Victoria nodded. "I have spoken to a defense attorney named Paul Whitmore, specializes in first-time offenders. He is willing to represent Haley at a reduced rate if she cooperates. But Michael, she has to come to this herself. You cannot force forgiveness on someone who is not ready to ask for it." Wednesday, I sat in the back row of the Douglas County courtroom and watched Marcus stand before a judge in an orange jumpsuit and shackles. His charcoal suit was gone. His fake watch was gone. His smile was gone. He looked smaller than I remembered. The way a building looks smaller after fire takes everything off the walls. The prosecutor referenced 4 prior victims across 4 states, losses exceeding $300,000, and an active bench warrant from Arizona. Marcus's attorney requested bond. The judge denied it. Flight risk too high. Pattern too clear. Marcus was returned to custody. He did not look at the gallery. He stared at the table the way a man stares at a door that will not open. I sat in my truck in the parking lot for 15 minutes. I did not feel victory. I felt the way I felt after every fire. Exhausted. Relieved. Aware the building was still standing, but knowing the damage inside would take months to repair. The 14 days passed slowly. I signed documents. I reviewed records showing where my $260,000 had gone. $95,000 to Haley's account, most transferred to Marcus. $85,000 to MW Tech Ventures LLC, a shell company with no employees. $62,000 to Rocky Mountain Luxury Events, for a wedding that lasted 11 minutes. $18,000 to a Salt Lake City account linked to Karen Lou's stolen funds. Every dollar mapped. Victoria's forensic accountant estimated a 40 to 60% recovery rate. I told her I did not care about the money. I cared about my daughter. On the 13th day, my phone rang at 7 in the evening. I was standing in the backyard, looking at Laura's columbines. They were done blooming, but the green leaves were still there, stubborn and low, waiting for spring, the way everything in Colorado waits for spring. With patience, with faith that the cold will end. "Dad," Haley said. I closed my eyes. "I need help." Her voice was small, smaller than I had heard it since she was a child, calling from a friend's house at midnight because she was scared and wanted to come home. "I am here," I said. "I know I do not deserve it. I know what I did. I know I hurt you. I know I believed him when I should have believed you. I know Mom would be ashamed of me. Your mother would never be ashamed of you," I said. I meant it with every cell in my body, because I had read Laura's letter, and I knew exactly what she would say. Haley has my heart. Be patient with her. Silence on the line. Then she said, Paul Whitmore called me. He said you arranged it. He said you are trying to help me even after everything. That is correct. Why? She whispered. Because that is what I do, Haley. I run into burning buildings. I do not check who started the fire before I go in. I just go in, she cried. I listened. I stood in the backyard with the phone against my ear and the columbines at my feet and the mountain breathing through the pines, and I let my daughter cry the way I had cried in the kitchen 2 weeks earlier. The kind that comes from the center of your chest and shakes everything loose. When she stopped, I said, Come home. We will figure this out together. You, me, Victoria, Paul, and Frank, who will bring sandwiches and complain about the Broncos and make you laugh when you do not think you can. She almost laughed. Almost. I will be there tomorrow, she said. I will leave the porch light on. I said. I had replaced the bulb that afternoon. I had climbed the ladder carefully. The way a 60-year-old man climbs a ladder when he has decided that falling is no longer an option. I hung up. I walked inside and opened the kitchen drawer and took out Laura's letter and held it against my chest one more time. I whispered, She is coming home. I set the letter back next to the reading glasses and the kindergarten photograph of Haley grinning so wide you could count every missing tooth. I walked to the front porch and turned on the light. It was a small light. A single bulb above a wooden door on a quiet street in Lakewood, Colorado. It did not illuminate much. Just the front steps. Just the walkway. Just enough for a lost girl to find her way back to the door. But that is how every rescue begins. Not with sirens, not with trucks, not with a 32-man crew and a ladder company and a command post on the corner. It begins with a single light in the darkness. It begins with someone deciding to leave it on. I left it on.